What is going on, guys? In today's video, I'm going to be going in depth and telling you all about the type of book that has made me thousands of dollars publishing books on Kindle Direct Publishing on Amazon, what goes into them, how I make them, what they are, all these kinds of things. So if that interests you, let's get right into the video. What is going on, guys? My name is Dane. If you're new here, welcome to the channel. On this channel, I post videos all about self-publishing, online entrepreneurship, and lifestyle. Just this past week, we actually got past 1,000 subscribers, which is insane. I remember starting YouTube like a while ago, and I got like 100 subscribers, and I was excited. But then last week, I went from I think it was like 200 to 1,000 subscribers. So that was a crazy week. So thanks to everyone who's joined the channel and is tuned in. Anyways, let's just get right into what this video is all about, and it is basically going in depth about the type of book that makes me thousands and thousands of dollars each month publishing on Kindle Direct Publishing. And that type of book is DIY books. I call them DIY books, stands for do-it-yourself books, and basically they're shorter forms of what is a traditional self-published book, which is like 30,000 words. A DIY book is around 10,000 to 15,000 words, and they're quicker to make, cheaper to make, and you can make just as much money with them. So I want to go in depth about all the different things that go into them, how you can make them, and how to start to implement them into your publishing portfolio. So let's dive into my screen here and let's get right into this. Okay, so we are looking at my free online publishing course. If you're interested in learning all about publishing, I have a free online course, and it's not just like a webinar, it's a full-on course. It's 11 hours long. There's tons of different videos in there. You can join it in the description down below. This is just a lesson from that course. And there's also some resources that go with this lesson that you can only access if you join the course down below. So if you're interested in that, click the link, and I will see you inside of Publisher Startup. But anyways, let's get into this lesson. So as you can see, we got the do-it-yourself book anomaly. Sorry, that's what this lesson is called. I know it's a bit strange, but do-it-yourself DIY books, that's what we're talking about. Those are the kinds of books that make me thousands of dollars each and every month with self-publishing. So the objectives for this video are going to be discussing why I call these books an anomaly. Then we're going to learn all about their genetic makeup. And then we're going to look into an example of one, or actually, there's actually a few examples. So we'll look into a few examples, and then we're going to learn how to create these kinds of books with ease. So let's do this. So why are DIY books an anomaly? You're probably wondering why I titled this lesson that. Like, what's the big deal? So the definition of an anomaly is something that deviates from what is standard, normal, or expected. So DIY books are kind of unknown in the publishing space. So lots of people know about them. They're just kind of unknown in comparison to what I like to call long form 30,000 word books. Lots of people know how to make those guys. Not a lot of people know how to dive into DIY books. And if people are aware of them, not many people know how to properly make them and use them to their full advantage. So basically what I just said. A lot of people fear the unknown with these kinds of books and are afraid to deviate from what's common. So let's turn these books from an anomaly to an absolute asset for your publishing business. So right now we're going to be answering, where do they fit into your business? Because I don't suggest having a business or a publishing portfolio, rather, that's based solely off of DIY books. You can start out with it like that, but I do suggest you have long form 30,000 word books and DIY books incorporated in there. So I'm going to explain to you where they fit into your business. So DIY books will still keep you alive during the long-term game. Unlike most long-form books, these books tend to be less consistent. So DIY books are a little bit less consistent than a traditional long-form 30,000 word book. And there's a couple things that go into that. I'm explaining in a second. They tend to spike at certain points of the year. So that's why I like to call this like almost the DIY trending model. So during certain points of the years, these kind of books will trend. DIY books are a way of filling in the holes that long-form books can create. Long-form books go up and down in terms of sales, but it's never very dramatic. So for the most part. So what I mean by filling in the holes with the DIY books, since the consistent long-form books don't tend to spike as much, you're taking advantage of the market by having those long-form books remain consistent. And then where those DIY books could spike, you have them in your portfolio, meaning that you're taking advantage of spikes and you're also keeping a consistent income with your long form books. So it's nice to have both of them contributing to your portfolio. So DIY books also go up and down, but they dip around the same amount long form books do, but they spike a lot higher than long form books do. So basically what I just said, DIY books are going to spike at certain points of the year, and then at certain points of the year, they won't do as good as a consistent long form book. So it's nice to have both those books mixed into your portfolio. So let's look at the genetic makeup of DIY form books. And genetic makeup meaning like what goes into them. So there are two types of DIY books. One is self-written, and one is written with the assistance of a ghostwriter to speed the entire process up. So other than that, DIY books are basically exactly the same. They fall into the same category. Traditionally, the shorter 5K word ones are going to be ones that you write yourself, because if you're writing your own book, it's going to take a while. If you're not experienced with it, it can be a very tedious and time-consuming job. So for the ones that you write yourself, I do suggest around 5K to like 8K words. And I know that might sound like a lot of words if you aren't really experienced with writing. But to put it in perspective, I started making these books when I began publishing, and I was able to make a few of these like 5K to 8K word books in like 1 week. And before that, I had like no experience with writing other than like high school English. So it's definitely doable. It's just got to put a lot of work into it. But they can also get up to like 15K words if you are doing the assisted model, where you're outsourcing the writing to a ghostwriter and they're doing the writing for you. Then the ghostwriter should be experienced in that area of expertise, and they'll get more words onto paper for you. Costs range from $0 because it's self-written to $250 in total. So in comparison to a long form book, which can generally 30,000 words, starts at around $500 to $600, and that's for not very good quality. For a good quality book, you want to go up to like $1,000 with long form ones. With DIY ones, you can really get away with around $150 to $250 if you want a high quality DIY book. It's just the nature of the kind of book they are and the niches they fall into. And another thing is that good reviews aren't too difficult to get. This is kind of subjective, depends on what niche you're making these DIY books for. And you can make DIY books for any niche. So some niches are going to be hard, don't get me wrong. But for the most part, for most of the niches that you make DIY books about, the audience just isn't as picky as, say, an audience that's reading a 30,000 word book. So the reviews aren't going to be as difficult to get, and good reviews is what I'm talking about there. Last thing here, an outline for how to make these books. So if you're curious and you want to get into DIY books, an outline is provided in Publisher Startup. So like I said, the link is in the description down below if you want to get into the program. I think this is lesson 2 or 1.4, something like that in the course. Anyways, just take a look through it. It's called DIY Book Anomaly, and in there you'll find the outline that you can use to get started on these books. Long form versus DIY book example. So if you're wondering, you're still a little bit confused about what makes them different from each other, I've mentioned a few times that long form books are like 30,000 words and DIY books are 5 to 15K, like I mentioned. But let's just go in depth about comparing one and the two. So a long form example would be improving your social skills, while a DIY book example could be like 401 dad jokes, just an example. Improving your social skills. This is consistent income, might peak during certain seasons a bit, but for the most part, this book will stay steady and bring in consistent sales throughout the year. I can't really think of a time during the year when a book on improving your social skills might spike. There might be small spikes here and there, like during Christmas, obviously, but all books spike during Christmas. But for the most part, in comparison to a book like I'm going to talk about in a second, the dad jokes, this will stay a lot more consistent and not really spike as much. On the other hand, 401 dad jokes, this will still bring in income from month to month, but most likely it won't be as consistent as improving your social skills. However, during peak seasons like Christmas, obviously, and by the way, Christmas, these kind of DIY books absolutely kill it. I know that from experience. Last Christmas was my first time I ever made $10,000 in 1 month, and that was based off of all the DIY books that I had contributing to my portfolio. So Christmas is a big time of year for DIY books. But looking at dad jokes, these will probably spike during Christmas. They will also spike during times like June, when Father's Day comes around, because kids, wives, whoever it might be, are buying dad joke books. This is when you can see big spikes and the trending characteristics of a DIY book start to shine. Like I said, these kind of books tend to trend. So that's just one example. There's tons of other examples that would do well at certain points of the year. But just to get the brain juices flowing, obviously, that's just dad jokes would do good during Father's Day. There's tons of different topics you can make that would do good during other holidays, special events throughout the year, like Thanksgiving, Easter, stuff like that, right? So to recap, DIY books have a lower cost, they're quicker to make, less bad reviews, like I said. Depends on the niche, but for the most part, you're gonna get less bad reviews and easier to get reviews. They can be very systemized. So like once you figure out a few books that work for you in the DIY style niche, or DIY style type of books rather, you'll start to figure out how to make more and more of them, a little bit more systemized, and get more writers on it and just get things rolling a lot quicker. Not many people are aware of this. Not many people are aware of this method, and if they are, they don't really know what to do. So just keep that in mind. If you're learning about this now, you're one of the, I don't want to say first people, there's tons of people who are already doing DIY style books and they don't even know they're called DIY books. But you're definitely ahead of the curve if you're learning this right now. A lot of the niches have small amounts of competition. So basically what I'm just saying, some of the niches have very high amounts of competition. So don't get me wrong. For example, jokes for kids or adults, super, super competitive, but those kind of books fall under the DIY style model book. They also have high potential to be on Audible, because some of them just don't make sense on KDP, and I'll explain that in a second, which is Amazon, so ebook and paperback format, and they will only work on Audible. But it also works the same way around. Some only work on KDP and don't really make sense on Audible. So it depends on the niche again and what kind of book you're making. So here are the examples that I promised at the beginning, different kinds of DIY books that you can look into and do a little more research on. So first thing is going to be low content. So this is kind of a DIY book. This is the first one I'm going to show you because it's kind of pushing the line of a DIY book. I like to think of DIY books as in between no content and long form books. So they're kind of the happy medium between the two. But I will mention low content books because they kind of fall into the same category as a DIY book. Just for example, let's take a look at this one. So looking at this guy, it is a handwriting practice paper for kids. And this is basically just a book full of lines. It's completely empty. And they're selling it for $8.38. So probably getting like a $3 royalty off of a sale. But if I look inside of this book, I'll just show you what I mean. So as you can see, like as I scroll through it, it's literally just blank lines throughout the entire book, which seems crazy, but it is a type of book. There's tons of these kinds of books. This is just one. There's handwriting practice. There's journals you can make. Log books. There's so many different low content books you can make. And like I said, they kind of fall into DIY territory, but not really. But anyways, let's get back to the slides here. So the next one up here is motivational books. So daily affirmations for success would be another example of a DIY book. And you can see this one has 500 positive affirmations. And that's basically just listing out affirmation after affirmation after affirmation, which I don't have any of these kinds because I find them kind of boring, kind of listy if you think about it. But there are tons of books that are like this and tons of people like them. You can see this one has 40 reviews. So obviously it's doing decent. These also work on Audible too. So this works on both kind of styles, motivational books, affirmation books, same kind of idea. Next one is going to be kids nonfiction books. So just kids nonfiction books in general because they are less words than a traditional long form book. Obviously you can make a kids book that is 30,000 words, but a lot of kids books are going to be shorter just because kids are new to reading, stuff like that. So here's an example though, awesome jokes that every 6-year-old should know. So like I said before, kids joke books are super popular, super saturated. I wouldn't really suggest getting into this, but this just gives you an idea of what a DIY book might look like for kids nonfiction. So let's take a quick look at the look inside feature for this one. So looking inside of this one, I'm going to show you what it kind of like how you can make these guys yourself. So you can see there's a short little introduction and then it gets into the jokes. Like it's seriously that simple. It literally just lists out jokes after jokes, maybe a few illustrations in there. Let's hire an illustrator, put some easy pictures in there, and you can just list out jokes for the whole book. This one has, I don't know if it says how many it has. It doesn't say how many jokes it has. Probably has like 300 to 500 jokes. So that is an example of a kid's DIY book. You could definitely make that yourself. You don't have to hire anyone to do that. But you can also hire someone to make it. It's completely up to you and what your budget allows for. Next thing is going to be adult kids books. So basically what we just went over, but in adult form. So you can make adult jokes. This one is like literally an activity book. I looked through it. I don't think it's necessary for me to take a look through it again. It's like Sudoku, word searches, all those kind of activities for adults. Simple stuff. Another one is meditation books. So this is kind of similar to the affirmation books, but with meditation, if you can think about it, it's basically guided meditation. So there's not very many words in these kind of books. If you've ever been a part of a guided meditation session, There's like a word every few minutes. So you can imagine it's not very hard to make these kind of books. And they do very well on Audible because people want to listen to a guided meditation. They don't really want to read about it. So this is one of those examples that might do better on Audible in comparison to on KDP. But this one looks like it's doing very well on KDP. This is a screenshot from KDP. Amazon has like 101 reviews, so that's a lot of reviews. But just to give you an idea, meditation books are another example of a DIY book. Another one is language learning books. You can see this example here has like 1,000 Spanish words, and it's literally just translating them into English. This probably isn't the most high quality book, but that's just an example. Like, you can make these kind of language learning books, obviously put a little bit more effort into them than just like translating into English every single time. Maybe write a Spanish story, get a translator, hire a translator, make that for you. It won't be nearly as expensive as making a 30,000 word long form book. So that's just another example of a DIY book. And next one is workout books. So this is another example, 100 no equipment workouts. So you can see that listing things is kind of a theme when it comes to DIY books, and just kind of having a big list or going step by step or something like that with a DIY book is something that you can do to get into them. This one has 100 no equipment workouts. So basically it's literally just, I can click on it and show you guys. Actually, I don't have the link here, but basically it's just a list of 100 workouts, no equipment workouts that shows pictures of the action that you got to do to perform the workout. Very simple. All you'd have to do is like hire an illustrator, and obviously every workout would be like a chapter. So there'd be like 100 chapters, and within those chapters there wouldn't be very many words because you're just explaining the workout. So the main thing would be hiring a good illustrator and getting them to draw out the pictures of the people performing the actions, performing the workouts, so that people who are reading the book can follow along. That'd be the hardest part. I don't think it would be very difficult to make one of these. If you find a good illustrator, be good. You don't want to steal pictures from anywhere because that's obviously copyright. So hiring an illustrator, making original photos or original illustrations for these kinds of books is a big thing to look into if you're interested in getting into workout books. Last but not least, cookbooks. These kind of walk the line of a DIY book and a long form book. I do call them DIY books to a certain extent because there's just a lot of pictures, and then it's like recipe after recipe after recipe. So it is kind of listy, like I said, and it is kind of step by step. So it does fall into the category of DIY books, but cookbooks tend to have a lot more words and are a lot longer than your traditional DIY books. So just keep that in mind. But if you're into cooking and like you know a lot of recipes, making a recipe book with, you don't have to do like 600, you do like 200 recipes is completely doable, and I would definitely consider that a DIY book. So now that you have an idea of how or what they look like, what they consist of, let's get into how to build these books. So there's two different ways, like I've talked about. The first way is going to be the complete DIY, like do-it-yourself method, writing them yourself. You need to think of topics that are simple to make and get content for. For example, a kid's joke book could contain like 500 jokes, all categorized into different chapters. So that could be like silly jokes, crazy jokes, I don't know, stupid jokes. There could just be a bunch of categories that you could put the jokes into and make chapters out of them. You can source these on the internet. Make sure you reword them. Don't just use the exact joke that you find on the internet. Jokes on the internet aren't really copyrighted unless the site explicitly says that they made those jokes. Most of the time it's just like a blog that's like listing out jokes that have been recycled from other places, and like jokes just float around. I don't think anyone really owns jokes. But like I said, if the site says it's copyrighted, don't obviously use that joke. But if you find a joke online, reword it, change a few things, and make it your own, and then you can include that into the book. Or of course you can make the jokes up completely yourself, and then have a mixture of ones that you sourced, ones that you made yourself, completely up to you. Like I said, or come up with them yourself. If that's your area of expertise, then that is an excellent way to start making some books and getting content onto KDP and making some money. So this process might take 2 to 3 days, but think about it, that time is completely worth it. You end up with a free book that's going to make you thousands of dollars. Potentially, if you do your keyword research and everything correctly, you can make a lot of money with these kinds of books. So option number 2 is assisted do-it-yourself methods. So like I said, this is when you hire a ghostwriter to make a DIY style book for you. Hiring a freelancer to write these books is very cheap, and it will take out a lot of the strain of sourcing content on the internet, trying to make or like trying to come up with stuff yourself. Like I said, you can make stuff up yourself, but obviously that's going to take a lot of more time, a lot more effort, and it's going to be a lot more difficult for you to do. So if you hire someone who's an expert at doing this kind of things for you, it's a lot easier. I usually pay $100 to $250 per DIY book that I have ghostwritten, and they take around 1 to like 1.5 weeks to fully complete being written. Hiring someone to do it just gives you the opportunity to have original content and completely made up for your book, so it makes your book stand out a lot more, rather than taking and recycling jokes and making them your own by putting different words in. People have probably heard those ones before. If you hire someone who's an expert at this kind of thing, they can make them up for you. Kids jokes, adult jokes, whatever it may be, just be a lot more original. I found people on Upwork who were able to make up like literally 500 jokes for kids. So if you think that's a lot, trust me, I've found people that can do it. It's completely fine, completely doable. This means you'll be able to make more joke books because content will be all different. So instead of making just one and then being like, I am way too tired, I don't want to make another book with 500 of them. If you hire someone to do it for you, you can make a bunch more of those books. So ways to stand out in this market. This is important because once you make a single DIY book, you'll figure out that it's hard to make it different from the more that you make in that same niche. So use a brand company name instead of a pen name. So instead of like a person's name, use like a brand name that's kind of catchy, especially if you're making like a workout book or something. Use like a brand name that might look cooler. That's just my opinion. You might just want to use a personal pen name, whatever. Since you're spending a lot less on writing compared to a long form book, invest in branding and the design of your book. So make that cover look really good. Maybe put a logo in there. Just make the branding and whole color aspect, color theme, cover, everything look really, really professional. Example of this could be hiring an illustrator from Upwork. So like I said before, with that joke book, she had some pictures in there, or with the workout book, hire an illustrator that's like a professional illustrator, invest in that and get that to look really good inside the book instead of having no pictures at all. Also, make sure you proofread and edit. Most other people that do DIY books won't. Since you're saving money on the writing and everything, hire a good proofreader and editor to go through the book and just make sure everything's up to par and looks good to go. And even though I've been saying they're kind of a listy form of book, try to make things not too listy. Add in different quotes, stories, messages from time to time, just to break things up and not get too monotonous with a bunch of things just listed out one after the other. Try to add in some stories, some quotes, whatever it may be, whatever suits that kind of book that you're making the best, do that. So why it's so important to come up with your own ideas. So there are only so many topics you can make these books about, like I've said. Eventually you'll come up short on content and to put inside these books if you don't have enough original ideas. So let's use the kids joke book example again. There are only so many kids jokes on the internet you'll be able to find. Inevitably, you're going to run out of content. Like, it's just going to happen. It's inevitable. So you'll need to think of a new idea for DIY topics. Since other people are going to be doing the same thing, you don't want to get into trouble for copying other people's books. So don't go out there, if you run out of content, don't go out there and copy other people's books. KDP will catch on and they will ban your account. Do not do that. So if you have original ideas, this will open up the opportunity to find more different content to put into your books and get an edge over your competitors. So if you specialize in some kind of DIY topic, like kids joke books or kids jokes or something, and you can make them yourself, that's a huge advantage with these kinds of books. So last thing is how to avoid copyright. So avoiding copyright. If you're sourcing out content yourself, make sure you rephrase it. I've already said this, but I want to say it again. Make it your own. Do not copy and paste stuff from the internet and put it into your book. Amazon will not like that if you do it. Do not copy things word for word. So from the internet or from other people's books on Amazon, this is a one-way ticket to getting your account banned and terminated from KDP. And on the other hand, it's just unethical. Don't do it. It's not a good idea. If you want to avoid copyright, make sure you follow these guidelines. Do not get caught in the trap of copying other people's work. You will get into trouble for that. So if you're interested in learning more about DIY books, I have a few more lessons that go in depth about them in the program, Publisher Startup. And also, if you want to get that DIY book outline, that is available in the description. Well, in the program, if you click the link in the description, you can join Publisher Startup. And in less than, I think I said 1.4, you can get the outline to make these books. And it just gives you a little bit more of a guideline to follow when you're trying to create these books. And if you're hiring someone, especially giving them an outline, That's provided in the course. So if you want to check that out, it's in the description down below. You can join the program. Anyways, that's it for today's video. If you enjoyed it, make sure you drop a like and subscribe to the channel. Turn on the notification bell so you know when I post new videos. I try to post videos once or twice per week, and all about publishing, entrepreneurship, and lifestyle. So if that interests you, make sure you do that. But other than that, this video is effectively over. I'm gonna try and get a new video out next week. But for now, that's it. Hope you enjoyed it. And thanks again for 1,000 subscribers. That is amazing. Never thought that would happen over the course of a week like it did last week, but it did. So anyways, thanks guys, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.